I've got you under my skin. That's a love song, isn't it? I don't want to blame Margaret at all, not in the slightest. But, to put it simply, if I was on my own, then who did I have? I hesitated for a few days before sending Veronica a new email. In it, I asked about her parents. Was her father still alive? Had her mother's end been gentle? I added that, though I'd met them only once, I had good memories. Well, that's 50% true. I didn't really understand why I'd asked these questions. I suppose I wanted to do something normal, or at least pretend that something was normal even if it wasn't. When you're young, when I was young, you want your emotions to be like the ones you read about in books. You want them to overturn your life, create and define a new reality. Later, I think you want them to do something milder, something more practical. You want them to support your life as it is, and has become. You want them to tell you that things are okay. And is there anything wrong with that? Veronica's reply was a surprise and a relief. She didn't treat my question as impertinent. It was almost as if she was pleased to be asked. Her father had been dead some 35 years and more. His drinking had got worse and worse. Esophageal cancer was the result. I paused at that, feeling guilty that my first words to Veronica on the wobbly bridge had been flippant ones about bald alcoholics. After his death, her mother had sold the house in Chislehurst and moved up to London. She did art classes, started smoking, and took in lodgers, even though she had been left well provided for. She had remained in good health until a year or so ago when her memory began to fail. A small stroke was suspected. Then she started putting the tea in the fridge and the eggs in the bread bin, that sort of thing. Once she nearly set the house on fire by leaving a cigarette burning. She remained cheerful throughout until she suddenly went downhill. The last months had been a struggle, and no, her end had not been gentle, though it had been a mercy. I reread this email several times. I was looking for traps, ambiguities, implied insults. There were none, unless straightforwardness itself can be a trap. It was an ordinary, sad story, all too familiar, and simply told. When you start forgetting things, I don't mean Alzheimer's, just the predictable consequence of aging, there are different ways to react. You can sit there and try to force your memory into giving up the name of that acquaintance, flower, train, station, astronaut. Or you admit failure and take practical steps with reference books and the internet. Or you can just let it go, forget about remembering, and then sometimes you find that the mislaid fact surfaces an hour or a day later, often in those long waking nights that age imposes. Well, we all learn this, those of us who forget things. But we also learn something else, that the brain doesn't like being typecast. Just when you think everything is a matter of decrease, of subtraction and division, your brain, your memory, may surprise you, as if it's saying, don't imagine you can rely on some comforting process of gradual decline. Life's much more complicated than that. And so the brain will throw you scraps from time to time, even disengage those familiar memory loops. That's what, to my consternation, I found happening to me now. I began to remember, with no particular order or sense of significance, long-buried details of that distant weekend with the Ford family. My attic room had a view across roofs to a wood. From below I could hear a clock striking the hour precisely, 5 minutes late. Mrs. Ford flipped the broken, cooked egg into the waste bin with an expression of concern. For it, not me. Her husband tried to get me to drink brandy after dinner, and when I refused, asked if I were a man or a mouse. Brother Jack addressed Mrs. Ford as the mother, as in, when does the mother think there might be fodder for the starving troops? And on the second night, Veronica did more than just come upstairs with me. She said, I'm going to walk Tony to his room, and took my hand in front of the family. Brother Jack said, and what does the mother think of that? But the mother only smiled. My good nights to the family that evening were hasty, as I could feel an erection coming on. We walked slowly up to my bedroom, where Veronica backed me against the door, kissed me on the mouth, and said into my ear, "Sleep the sleep of the wicked." And approximately 40 seconds later, I now remember, I was wanking into the little wash basin and sluicing my sperm down the house's pipework. On a whim, I googled Chislehurst, and discovered that there'd never been a St. Michael's Church in the town. So Mr. Ford's guided tour as he drove us along must have been fanciful, some private joke or way of stringing me along. I doubt very much there'd been a Café Royal either. Then I went on Google Earth, swooping and zooming around the town, but the house I was looking for didn't seem to exist.